to the Meaningful Minutes with Nikki Olson podcast. This is a show for busy Latter-day Saint women who want to learn simple tools to feel confident and inspired in 10 minutes or less. Welcome. On this episode today, we are going to discuss anxiety, how it can interfere with you hearing the Spirit, and 5 ways to calm your anxiety. Now, anxiety is really the absolute worst, right? It can change how we think, how we feel, and how we really interpret what is happening around us. I know that when I feel anxiety, I really feel like life becomes unmanageable. And this anxiety cycle starts happening for me. I want to talk with you about this anxiety cycle so you can understand how it's interfering with you being able to hear the Spirit. Now, anxiety is really loud and obnoxious. It's not a quiet voice like the Spirit, right? The Spirit is really a still, small voice. So when anxiety becomes loud and obnoxious, we can't hear the Spirit. Not that the Spirit is leaving us because we've done something wrong or that we are unworthy in some way. It's just that we can't hear the Spirit in that moment. And the Spirit is really where we depend on our faith and trust in God. The Spirit speaks those words to us and helps us feel faith and trust. So if we're not hearing the Spirit in those moments when we're feeling anxious, we can really feel uncertain about ourselves, uncertain about the Spirit and the direction that we're going, the decisions that we're making. And then we start mistrusting ourselves and even God. And sometimes what happens when we get caught in that cycle is we start blaming ourselves. We might start feeling unworthy or that we've done something wrong because we don't hear the Spirit. And so it's like, well, then I must be sinning in some way because I can't hear the Spirit. This cycle really keeps you from accepting the reality of things as they are. Because we start believing that our imperfections and our weaknesses are just unacceptable and that we should be doing better. And guess what that does? Causes even more anxiety. The point of understanding this cycle is to recognize that anxiety is the root cause, not that you are doing anything wrong, that you're faithless or that you're unworthy of God's love. But the good news is there's relief from that. Now, I'm going to teach you some tips to calm your anxiety. But I want to tell you, because I know you're busy, I know you're doing something else while you're listening to this, I have created a little worksheet that has that cycle laid out and these tips that I'm going to tell you. And if you click the link in my show notes, you can get this worksheet emailed to you. So you don't have to take notes and you don't have to come back and listen to it, although that would be nice if you wanted to get, but this worksheet will just lay it all out for you. So if you just click the link, it will go straight to your email and you'll have it for later if you want. So the first thing that I want you to understand about anxiety is what it's doing to you. Physically, what anxiety is doing to you is it's causing body tension. So when you become anxious, you might feel your muscles starting to contract. So your heart's a muscle. So if it starts contracting, it's going to start beating faster, right? If your muscles around your lungs start contracting, it's going to be harder to breathe. I know I contract my jaw muscles, and so my jaw becomes really tense. I often contract my muscles in my ankles and pull my feet up, and so my ankles feel really tight. Also, your throat may become tense. Maybe the tone of your voice changes because of the tension on your vocal cords. And the second thing that happens with anxiety is we start feeling clutter in our minds. Our minds start having thoughts just going off in different directions. Like you have one thought that turns into 10, and each of those 10 turn into 10 more, and you just can't focus or think clearly or just manage your thoughts anymore. So the tips that I'm going to talk to you about are to help with that body tension and that mind clutter. If you didn't have that body tension and that mind clutter, you wouldn't say that you were feeling anxious. So the first tip that I have for you is to become aware of your five senses. Now, your five senses help decrease body tension and mind clutter. So all you need to do is just become aware of those senses. You don't have to stop what you're doing. You don't have to stop your thoughts. It's not like a meditation process in that way, but it's more of just noticing those senses. So just noticing the background sounds that are around you. Notice how things feel. Notice the ground underneath your feet. Notice the chair underneath you if you're sitting down. Notice gravity on your body. Maybe you can become aware of the air as you breathe, or become aware of how things look, like the textures, the colors of things. Just noticing your senses can bring that body tension and that mind clutter down. And the second tip that I have for you is to practice using your senses. And if you don't practice, then your anxiety isn't going to remind you to do it in the moment, right? You aren't going to be able to be good at it because you haven't practiced it. And number three, you're just not going to know what senses you like for certain situations. So by practicing, you build up that muscle strength, that muscle memory to do it, and knowing what senses you like for certain situations. All right, my third tip is to accept that anxiety is a part of life. You're going to feel it, okay? The more that you try to have a life that's anxiety-free, the more anxiety you're causing, because you're frustrated that you're still having anxiety. Instead of trying to control not having anxiety, control what you do when you have anxiety, like doing some of these tips. Like my next one, moving your body. Anxiety builds energy in your body. Think about it. If your muscles are tensing up, right, building up energy in your body, you need to burn off that energy and release that tension in your muscles somehow. And by exercising, you can do that. Now, my fifth tip is to seek out help. I know I just said that we need to accept that anxiety is a part of life. But if anxiety becomes something that is interfering with your ability to function day to day, like you just can't focus on what you need to do. It's debilitating in your relationships and interfering with you being able to function in your relationships or at work or in your day-to-day tasks. The anxiety is not allowing you to do that. Then there is something else happening that's causing your anxiety to happen more often than is necessary. And being able to seek out help and talk to somebody about that can help you understand what's at the root of that anxiety and help you heal from that. And that's one of the things that I do in my one-on-one coaching program is I help you identify what those root causes are of anxiety and teach you tools to defuse those reasons so it's not waking up your anxiety on a daily basis. So if you're kind of in that category, you would like some help and you want to find out more about my program, I'll put the link in my show notes where you can check out my website or you can message me for more info on my coaching program. All right, I hope that these minutes you spent with me were meaningful and that I helped you feel more inspired and more confident. Check out my show notes for links to my website, social media, and free handouts for remembering how to implement these skills. Now, I know there are other women out there that could use this information, and leaving a review is a great way for other women to hear this message. If you'd like to continue this conversation, please come find me on Instagram at Nikki Olson Coaching. If you share this episode, please tag me. I love to connect with my listeners. Thank you for listening to the Meaningful Minutes podcast with Nikki Olson.